This is Rock and Roll English. Real people, real English. Here's your host, Martin Johnston.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Rock and Roll English. Episode number 133, baby. Oh yeah. And this is another one in the Expert Secrets series where I speak to Mike, teacher Mike, who lives and teaches English in China. I've said it once and I'll say it again. We are rocking all over the world, people. Anyway, Mike is actually originally from America. He has lots of experience in teaching English. He has a YouTube channel, all of which we will talk about in the episode. And there will also obviously be links to all of this in the show notes, episode number 133. You will notice the audio quality is probably not as good as usual on this show because we had to use a different program. I'm not going to bore you with the details, but remember there is a transcript to this episode, which again you can download on the website from the show notes page, episode number 133. Anyway, that's enough of me talking. Let's get to the episode, baby. Happy listening. Hello, Mike, and welcome to Rock and Roll English.
Thanks for having me on.
No problem at all. Thanks for coming on. So tell us a little bit about you. You're in China, but where are you from? How long have you been teaching English?
Yeah, so I grew up in the U.S. and I've been in China about almost 10 years now, so quite a long time. And sort of came over to China when the U.S. was kind of in the rut, I guess you could say, of the recession, and not a whole lot as far as work goes and jobs. And to be honest, I wasn't a teacher at that time. And it was just having an opportunity to come to China and be able to teach, albeit at the time a little unqualified.
Yeah, I know how you feel. I was exactly the same when I came to Italy.
Yeah, so after I had the chance to teach and be in a classroom and to see a need that people had for learning not just English but foreign languages.
Mm-hmm.
I decided to change careers. Went back to school, got a teaching license in the U.S. so I could be more educated and qualified, and be able to teach better, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And so here I am still today.
Yeah,
in China.
I've heard you speak in Chinese in your YouTube videos. It's absolutely amazing. You seem to speak perfectly.
Well, my Chinese wife probably wouldn't say perfect, but
okay.
I'd say I'm fairly fluent in just regular conversations. I would maybe struggle a little bit, like watching the news in Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
Movies I can do pretty well.
Yeah.
Or if there's some kind of a classical cultural movie, there's a lot of cultural things in there that I probably wouldn't understand.
Yeah, no.
But overall, daily life is no problem. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's the same for me in Italian. Obviously I've asked you on to share some of your tips about learning English. But first of all, I want you to share some of your journey about learning Chinese. What really helped you in that? Like what difficulties did you face and what really helped you?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is that when I first came to China, I made a decision straight away that I was going to, at least as long as I was there, I was going to try my best to learn the language. I feel very strongly about if you live in a country which doesn't speak your language or as much, I think it's important that you make an effort to learn that country's language. So
Absolutely.
the first thing was just I was determined to at least try right away. And there's now at this time there's a lot more resources available, but at that time I had been lent a copy of the Pimsleur's. Have you ever heard of those? The Pimsleur's.
What are Pimsleur's?
Pimsleur's. It's kind of like before Rosetta Stone. It's just a bunch of CDs, and they go through and you listen. It's about a half hour lesson, 30 minutes, and you repeat, and they kind of tell you what it means, if it was translated, and then they kind of do a literal translation, because obviously things, different grammar structures in different languages. And so there was a whole series of those I went through, and that got me started with listening and pronunciation straight away, so I could have the basic, excuse me, sir, where's the bathroom?
Yeah, sure.
How much does this cost? All the numbers, and all the survival things. I had down within a couple of months. And so the next thing, I guess Chinese is a bit unique in the sense that they don't really have an alphabet. So learning to write and read takes a lot more time than other languages, and most other languages, because you need about 3,000 Chinese characters before you could, probably read a newspaper or a magazine. So that presents a challenge. So I bought some flashcards, which had all the most commonly used characters. And I would just go through those every day. I would maybe take 10 or 20, and I would make little piles of them. And I would make 4 piles, and I would go through each pile each day. If I remembered it, I would put it into the next pile, and it would keep going, jumping piles until it got to the 4th pile. And if I remembered it a 4th time, it would be gone, and I wouldn't study it anymore. And so I got to learn. Yeah, a lot of repetition there. So that was very helpful for reading. And it helps build vocabulary a little bit as well.
Sure. Yeah. So lots of hard work, lots of repetition as well. Very good.
Yeah.
And what about, so with your students and learning languages in general, what are the top tips you can give us, advice that you give? Because everyone that I've had on here always shares something different. So what would be your advice for students?
I mean, it's usually not possible, but the best way is to do some kind of immersion where you go to a native country, a native English speaking country, and you're forced to only speak English, whether it be for a couple weeks or a couple months or a couple years. That's by far the quickest way, because we kind of go back to our childlike instincts, right? We have to survive, and we need to learn to communicate to survive.
Sure.
If that's not possible, I think I wish, when I was learning Chinese in my earlier years, I wish I had done more reading, because when you're reading stuff, the thing in Chinese, you can't just read straight away. You need to learn the characters, but there are materials where you have the Chinese characters, and you have the Romanized version, which is called Pinyin, and then you have the English. There are books like that for language learners. I wish I'd gotten those and just read out loud. Actually, reading out loud, I think, is a very quick way to just get used to speaking another language, for one, and B, just adding vocabulary, because you're constantly seeing new words, and you can, with our phones these days, it's really, really easy to look up the word's meaning and look up other sentences or how to use a word. So I wish I had done that. I think the more I read in whatever language, I learn now much faster.
Yeah. I think reading out loud really helps, because sometimes it's literally just getting your mouth used to actually like pronouncing these words, because it obviously you're not used to it. So it's a very strange concept for you. So how many languages do you speak then?
I mean, I speak a little Spanish, un poco, but I don't know if I would count that as
okay.
I would still say I'm pretty beginner, but I'm probably a fluent, not native level, but probably fluent Chinese speaker.
Okay. Oh, very good.
I have aspirations for more.
Yeah, of course. That's the great thing about language learning, that it almost never stops. I mean, even English, it's not like I know all of the words in English. Um,
Exactly.
and so what about resources that you can share with us? Or do you advise your students?
Yeah, it really depends on what language you want to learn, but like that's the reason why I started my YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
Is because I wanted to provide a certain resource for students who maybe didn't have access to certain things, and um, that maybe they wanted a different way to learn English or different style. So, I mean, first thing is just if you have the mindset that you're going to learn, just hop on YouTube. There's just so much free information, some free lessons, and it's usually done in a style which is much more. Yeah, it's different than sitting in a classroom, right? But
Sure.
um, again, you have to be active when you're learning things. You can't just watch it and never open your mouth and never do anything. You have to
Sure.
stop the video and repeat what they're saying, try to
Mm-hmm.
understand what they're trying to teach you in a short lesson.
Sure.
Podcasts
Absolutely. Yeah.
podcasts like this are another great
Yeah.
resource. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know where to start. There's so many apps. There's great apps just for chatting that are very inexpensive. I know, some people may not have the money to, but if you have a little money, a little budget, there's a few great apps. One that I've always recommend it's called Cambly, and it's really cheap. You get on and you talk to somebody for 15 minutes, and then you get on with your day, and you can talk to people all over the world, and it's a great way to practice your oral English, which was my goal in learning Chinese. I wanted to have good oral Chinese. I wasn't super concerned about the writing as much,
Sure.
but depends on your goals, I'd say.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks. So tell us a bit about your YouTube channel. Like, how do you structure it? I've seen a few of the videos which are really well done, but so what's your main aim with it?
Well, I noticed real quickly that in China, a lot of the students they s- they s- they have the same problems when learning English, and they ask me a lot of the same questions over and
Okay.
over again. And so my channel was kind of a way to address all these questions
Okay, it's a good
for the
idea.
masses,
Yeah.
because you kind of, I don't want to say get sick of, but it's strange answering the same questions day after day,
Yeah, yeah.
from different people. So um, I wanted to address certain pronunciation problems that
Mhm.
they almost all of them have. For example, like the th sound, we in English say like thank you or that. We have a voiced
Yeah.
sound which is th, and an unvoiced sound which is th. But in Chinese that sound doesn't exist. So
Okay,
they
yeah.
often replace it with like an S sound, like
Okay.
sink, or a Z sound, zat or dat.
Okay.
Um, and it's just, you hear it like over and over every day. So I really wanted to help them just correct those basic things, as
Mm-hmm.
well as offer maybe a different style of teaching than maybe what they grew up with.
Sure.
And that was my main motivation. And other motivation is maybe a little more selfish. I'm hoping someday I can jump into full-time online education.
Yeah.
Uh, so
Yeah. I'm with you on that one.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Mike. So tell us, where can people find out more about you?
Well, I'm on all over Chinese social media, but if you're not, you can find me on YouTube and Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
My Chinese name is 麦克老师, but my English name on YouTube is just Teacher Mike.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty simple, should be the first one. And even though my videos are maybe a little more focused on a Chinese audience, I still have a lot of students from all over the world that I think are still watching and just kind of seeing the different style of education. So
Okay.
I think it works for everyone still.
Fantastic. I'll put notes.
Yeah.
I'll put links to this, in the show notes anyway. Okay.
Sure.
Well, thanks a lot for coming on, Mike. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
You bet. My pleasure. Thanks
Okay.
for the invite.
No problem. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. Okay, so that was me talking to teacher Mike about learning English, sharing a few expert secrets. Let's have a look at the main takeaways from this. What have we learned? Mike's journey, he was determined to learn Chinese. You have to take it seriously. You have to have that motivation. We will keep coming back to this in this series because that's how important it is. I also thought it was interesting when he talked about the course Pimslers. I can't remember the name, but he was saying it was basically just listen and repeat. You can do that with podcasts. You can talk whilst you listen. It's called shadowing. That will really help you with your pronunciation and fluency. It's better if you talk to yourself, but obviously sometimes that's not possible if you're on the bus, unless you want to seem completely crazy, but you can talk in your head, baby. Another thing I thought was interesting is he said that you need to know about 3,000 characters before you can read a newspaper in Chinese. Did you know in English that the 100 most common words make up 50% of a text in English? So even if you only know 100 words in English, you will be able to understand 50% of a text. That's not a lot, people. We can do this shit. Another thing was reading. He said he wished he had done more reading. We can all do that. Read something you like because those grammar structures will enter your head, enter your brain without you noticing. And adding vocabulary. Take this seriously, people, okay? Don't just listen to an episode of Rock and Roll English and think, oh, that was a good word. I'll probably remember that. Do something with it. Get a notebook, write it down, learn it, try to use it. Otherwise, it will just keep moving and you will not keep it in that brain of yours. Anyway, remember, all of the links to all of this is on the website, rockandrollenglish.com, episode number 133. Go there, find it, check out Mike's YouTube channel. I will see you all again on Monday, people. But in the meantime, just keep on rocking, baby.
Thanks so much for listening to Rock and Roll English. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit rockandrollenglish.com and facebook.com/rockandrollenglish. We'll catch you next time.